Good evening and welcome to the 327th meeting of the New York Comics and Picture Stories Symposium. This is a weekly lecture series on comics, illustration, animation, and the history of text image work. The series is sponsored in part by the Will and Ann Eisner Family Foundation. And our guest tonight is Clara Bessijelle, who's a cartoonist from Sweden. She's calling in tonight from Gotland, an island in the Baltic Sea. And she's published comics and has been anthologized in both European and American publications, including The Believer, the anthology, The Who, The What, The When, Astral Talk, Black Eye Number 3, and Efflux Journal, among other places, and also exhibits her drawings on walls. Her comic Face Man, which is how I discovered her work, it was published by Domino Books and was nominated for the Ignatz Award as Promising New Talent in 2012. So let me turn it over to Clara. She'll be talking and showing lots of her work tonight. So take it away.
Thank you. And so I have this cover of Face Man, just to familiarize people with like my comics that if people have read my comics, they probably read Face Man. And so I was just like, okay, familiarize people with this comic. And my talk today will be about my work and a little bit about my my process and my characters and inspiration, and mostly just showing my comics. And I'm a Swedish comic book artist, and I was born in Stockholm in 1984. And when I was 19, I went to a comic book school in south of Sweden. And my only interaction with the comics before that was reading Donald Duck, which is really big here in Sweden, when I was like 7. So I wasn't reading comics really. But I liked telling stories, and I liked writing stories, and I liked to draw. I like images. And what drew me to applying for this comic book school was the combination of image and text. And then by the end of that year in school, I made as a side project this comic called Hawk, which is I would say my first comic that I did. And I'm gonna read it to you. It's in Swedish, but I have this English translation here. In the house where Hawk was a butler lived a blurry man. Hawk had to take care of the daily chores, like dusting the old family portraits, or help with the food. On his spare time, he usually went to his mother's grave. One day, there was a man standing there with no legs. Hawk took the man to the doctor. He has a problem closing his mouth. Hawk took the man to a witch doctor, but nothing helped. He had to accept his new friend. The days went by as usual in the house, but Hawk suspected some competition. They were becoming friends. They were becoming best friends, actually. Hawk had a hard time sleeping that night. 3 days later, when Hawk should have visited his mother's grave, he went to his master instead to ask how he was feeling. With a simple procedure, another relative had now become complete. Tea? Thank you. And you can see it's this mark on his neck. This. So I went to this comic book school, and then after that school, I felt that I had to do comics in a certain type of way, and I had to promote myself in a certain type of way to make it in comics. And I really felt that I wasn't interested in that, and I felt like, okay, well then if that's the way, then okay, maybe comics isn't my thing. Okay, let's move on to my next interest, which was movies. And I thought, okay, well, from movies, it became animation, because I was thinking, okay, from the image and storytelling, it's sort of the next thing in the same direction. And that animation school, it was really fun. It was really fun learning about animation, but I had to rely on so much equipment and technology that wasn't really working. And there was a lot more steps and more people involved, and just a longer process. And then I really started to miss the simplicity of making comics, like just using a pen and paper, and that you can do it by yourself really easy, and just that handmade thing you can make of a scene, of a comic. You can just print it and then get it out there kind of fast. And I was also making 2D animation and tracing over the same image over and over again. And that also made me appreciate like the first line in the drawing, like the original drawing. Like I really liked how personal that was, and like how, just not wanting to touch anything, just like make it, and then, okay, it's done. I have this original drawing. I like the personality of this. And so I started making comics again, and I did Hawk Part 2. And I did it for a comic book festival in Sweden. And I'm going to read you a little bit from this one. Evening was settling over the house where the butler named Hawk lived. Today's chores were done, and Hawk sat in his armchair, sipping on his evening wine while watching TV. Discovery was his favorite channel, and the title of tonight's program were Rare Diseases and Its Symptoms. Hawk immediately felt that he began to have the shakes. The TV says, as we can see, this patient is not feeling good. Paralysis, seizures, shakings, and he's vomiting like a fool. Hawk didn't feel good after that program. One arm felt numb, and he had a severe dryness in his mouth. His shakings just continued, and he had no other option than to call the doctor. But here I'm going to stop, and because I'm going to talk about the doctor, so I'm going to read the rest of the story when I do an introduction of the doctor. But yeah, we can stop there. And for this comic book festival that I did, Hawk Part 1 and Part 2, I met Alvin Benventura, and he really liked this comic and said that, okay, if you translate this into English, And you can come to New York and sell your comics at my table at the MoCA festival. And I did that. I went to New York, and I had done this Hawk comic at home on my printer. And yeah, it kind of looked like this, stapled and really simple. But I kind of liked it, that it was really, really handmade. And in New York, as a contrast, it just really opened up my view on comics. And I met a lot of people and comic book artists doing the same type of comics that I wanted to do. And I got really inspired and felt really encouraged and encouraged to keep making comics in the same way. And that's how I started making more comics. And from this day, I started making comics in English, which I have continued doing since then. And so this is from 2010. This is the comics that I started making, or I was making comics for anthologies in different places, and I was making comics for festivals, comic festivals. So this I did in 2010, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my inspiration. And for this, like this photo, for example, because when I started making comics, I was learning how to draw from old magazines. I was in school looking at National Geographic, my mom had a lot of old magazines from the 30s, 50s, and I was really inspired by this, old commercials, black and white photos, prints, vintage photos, portraits of people. And that's usually and still today, what I get inspired by. And that I see a photo, for example, that triggers like, or I'm thinking that, okay, maybe this person is thinking this or expressing this, and that leads to like a conversation. Or I see another photo with another person, and I think, okay, well, maybe. So I probably saw another photo of this dad sitting for this comic, and just like, oh, if then this could be his dad, and then them interacting, and then it just started this comic that I did called Wedding Day, and this is the first image. I know there was something. Heavy rain was in the air. The wedding guests were losing their manners. Shit, the wedding. Oh, have you been waiting? Bebe felt jealous and flew away. We have talked now and everything's cool. Are you ready to get married and continue our ceremony? I'm here now. At the same time, somewhere else. I know there was something. And this is another comic that I did in 2010. And this is also, I liked experimenting a lot when I was doing comics, like cutting out drawings. And I liked to use different types of materials. And I was also making comics mostly like one panel, one image for one panel, one page as one panel. And I was filling the page with just a lot of details and things. And this one is called the Lobster King. And yeah, here I got inspired by the Swedish king, King Carl Gustav III. I don't know, probably the hairstyle and his cape that kind of looked like he had claws, I mean, hanging. And then, yeah, this is also interior design that was really, I mean, from old magazines that I was inspired by. Just a lot of details and yeah, just this, yeah, old style. So it inspired me to do this comic. A man lived by himself near the ocean. His house was filled with more than you could ever imagine. There he lived his days as a king. The king of lobsters. The Lobster King. The Lobster King was, as a person, both happy and direct. He used to holler at people he met on the beach walk. "Watch out, you stupid fuck, or else I'll pinch your nose." People used to holler back at him, "Have a nice day, Lobster King," since nobody took offense of his outspoken ways. When Lobster King woke up the next morning, he looked around in the room. Something felt strange, like someone was watching him. Why was it so bright? And why was his head hurting so much? Most of the people didn't understand the Lobster King, and the best way to deal with him was just to ignore him. That was something this little boy couldn't understand. And then it ends here, and I don't really understand why. I can't remember why I stopped there. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, it ends here, and it's probably done for a anthology or maybe a comic that I think that it was limited to a page number or something. I don't know. Or maybe I was just like, yeah, this makes sense. I don't know. And then at 2011, I did this comic called Goodbye. And I was also still experimenting with a lot of cutting out drawings that I made. Different sizes on, I mean, this cat, just, yeah, liking the weirdness of things. This person says, "Goodbye, I'm never coming back, and there's nothing you can do about it." Greg said goodbye to the world outside and went into his apartment where he had planned to stay for the rest of his life. He realized as he entered, and I can't really see the sign, but as he entered the apartment, he realized that he was in the wrong apartment. As a man who never broke a promise, especially one that he just made, he decided to make the best of the situation. "Oh, I'm so grateful that you came. I really am, but I have to ask you to leave now. It's late and I have to wake up early." "Hey, kid, you too. Out. And don't stare at my fishes." "They're not your fishes. And you're in the wrong apartment. And you know it." And then they throw him out. That's also a little bit short. Now when I read the comics again, it's, it doesn't really make total sense to me, but yeah. Then in 2011, I did this comic called X-Ray. The doorbell rang. The doorbell kept ringing. It was only Carl, that arrogant bastard. They were doctors, colleagues, neighbors, and friends. They would always meet up for lunch. Tell me as it is, you never liked me. Someone from a nearby table disturbed us. Man, I got a lot of information I gotta get across. I got it. So that was like a period of just like doing a lot of different comics, making, I mean, they weren't that long comics. They were kind of short and kind of weird. But then, yeah, I'm going to talk about Faceman. And I can't talk about comics, and I can't talk about Faceman without mentioning Austin English. And because I met him in 2009, and then he moved to Sweden, and we moved to New York in 2011. And that's when he started Domino Books. And because I hadn't done a longer story, I felt like I needed to do a longer, coherent story. And we decided that, okay, we're gonna put out this longer book on Domino Books, and it's gonna be for this comic book festival. And it was really difficult for me to make these comics because they're so long. I didn't have any practice doing a longer story. And I just remember being really annoyed at I had to draw the same character over and over again, which was really frustrated for me. But it's funny because that's like usually what you do in comics. You have the same character that you have to draw over and over again, but it just like that hadn't occurred really to me, and that I was so annoyed by that too. But yeah, but Faceman was 24 pages long, and it's still the longest comic that I did. And now when I did it afterwards, I couldn't really look at it, but now when I read it, I like it a lot, and I laugh a lot at a lot of different images. But I'm not going to read the whole comic. I'm just going to explain and show some images from it. And it's about this guy who thinks he's a writer and can't remember anything about this play that he's writing a review about. And that's the box office girl selling tickets. And then he goes in, he gets the tickets, he goes in to see the play again, and this man gets closer and closer and follows him into a restaurant. I will tell you as it is. I'm broke, so we're gonna split a soup. Can I please eat in privacy? Don't talk to me, okay? Don't even look at me. I went to sleep that night. The strange man followed me into my dreams. Yeah, he gets really paranoid and starts running and just ends up at this place. Hi there, shut up and help me. There you are, welcome back. Who are all these people and how did they know me? Excuse me, people, I really need the bathroom. What the hell? What is this? If you lost it, we will find it, your identity. We identify with you, identify with us. So that bastard showed up. Did you know he was coming? I thought he was missing. And now I can't read the last. But yeah, they had him followed. What should we do? He's so different. Let's call the doctor so he can take a look at him. And this is also where this ends, because the rest, I'm going to show you a little bit about the doctor later. And after making that Face Man comic and being so sick of drawing the same character over and over again, I just made this comic where I had to do a new character each panel, which was great. And this was for an anthology about fathers, but it didn't end up in that anthology. I think it ended up in some kind of scene that I made. But this is about dads. My dad is still a spiteful bastard. A bad communicator. He pauses before he makes a fool of himself. Good morning, honey. Now he remembers. What? I'm on vacation. Well, I'm in the process of getting dressed. And here comes my doctor character that I personally really like. And this character has been there from the start. I mean, he was in Hawk Part 1, and he's just been, entering different comics. So this is what it looked like in the first Hawk comic. Kind of sweet and kind, like foolish maybe. And then in Hawk Part 2, so this is the rest of the Hawk part. Hawk is feeling bad. He calls the doctor. And then meanwhile, elsewhere, of course, I'm just a little bit busy taking every opportunity I can with a woman. A moment later, the doctor is in the house. The doctor came to Hawk's rescue, and while he examined Hawk, they started to talk. Discovery, you say? Well, as a womanizer and a doctor, I'm not sitting around, and especially not watching television. You know, I'm not an indoor man. Say, that's a very nifty smock you have. Where can you find a similar one? Oh, this cloth, bought secondhand. It's a very funny story. It was when, and as I usually say, if I can't find a cure, I'll have to find a gun and shoot something. Suddenly, heck, how could I forget my dance partner? And it's already getting bright. Oh, I have to apologize. I don't know why you're here either. a very nice young man there. I hope he comes again. And then the doctor enters the Face Man comic. Well, and then, yeah, it's the same thing there. Someone's calling the doctor, and apparently his name is Dr. Baxter, which I never named him anything, but apparently I did. Dr. Baxter speaking. So I did a reference to the Hawk comic earlier. So he has the same catchphrase coming into a room saying, the doctor's in the house. Where's the food? I mean, the patient. Where's the patient? Can somebody bring me food? I'm starving. And please, lay the patient down. Perfect. And that's in Face Man that he appears. And then in 2012 and 2015-16, I made this comic, which is Alvin Benventura curated the comic section in the Believer magazine and asked me to do a single panel that would, I mean, it would come in several issues of the magazine. So I thought, okay, I needed something that either a story that you could continue reading, or maybe a character that would appear again that you could recognize, and would be this story of the same character. And I thought, oh, well, the doctor is a really interesting character. And the doctor is getting more and more creepy. I mean, he started out being kind of goofy, and then he's getting more and more creepy. And this is the first one of the comics that I did in the Believer. And this is the second one. And I can talk a little bit about the doctor, because he's not really a doctor. I mean, he just pretends to be a doctor. He's, I mean, he doesn't know anything. I mean, here's doing surgery, talking on his phone really close. He doesn't even have his gloves on. I mean, in the background, there's a fake diploma for, I guess, some, sailing diploma. That's probably not even his. It's probably just something that he found in a secondhand store and put up. And he's really, he's really not a nice guy. He's kind of, really creepy and just have fun, playing with people's lives. And here he's, this is a young boy that's applying for this assistant work. And this doctor is just about himself, just wants to have fun, egocentric, likes to talk about himself. And I mean, here he doesn't even have a proper desk for them to see that. And he's really egocentric and enjoys, women. And here, he doesn't even really want to be in his office, just having fun instead. And I really enjoyed making these comics with the doctor. I don't know, it was really fun to draw. I like all the details, and my work is getting more and more detailed. And this doctor character is really stuck with me. So this, after that, just single panel comics about the doctor, I really felt like I wanted to make a longer story. And Ryan Stanfest contacted me to be in his anthology, Black Eye 3. And it was said that I could do 2 pages, and it was up to me what I wanted to do. And I felt like this is the longer story about the doctor that I like. I heard that you're a specialist. I need someone I can trust. Looks like you came to the right man. What can I do you for? I have a black hole in my head. Yes, okay. Nurse, hold my calls. Take a seat. I'll run some tests. I like what I see. It's performing all of these experiments on this guy, and now he's not even, I mean, he's looking in this kaleidoscope, he's just having fun with this patient. Is this a standard procedure? Okay, I'll guess that's enough. Listen, I don't know what kind of doctor you think I am. The black hole looks perfectly normal to me, and should even suck up these other things. Just take 2 of these and call me in the morning. And that was the end of the doctor character. And I still have written a lot of other stories about him, and I really enjoy making comics with him. But we will see. This is the last comic that I did in 2020, and it was also Ryan Stanfest that was asking me to do for his anthology Penny Dreadful. That was like a horror comic type of thing. And I got inspired by some of my coworkers' stories about neighbors. So this is with a twist, called The Letter. Excuse me, fine neighbor. I received a letter by mistake, and I'm trying to find its rightful owner. Would you happen to know if Mr. Henderson lives in the area? Oh, yes, he lives close by, but I will knock on his door. Some say he's crazy. He's a toothless maniac. He lives only on hard candy and cigarettes. Well, you never see him outside, at least not during the day. Oh no, you see him at night. I saw him last night with his headlamp and his eyes and crawling around or digging in the ground. Oh, sorry for eavesdropping, but I've heard that his wife left him and their kids disappeared. The rooms are still as they left them. I heard he killed his wife and 2 children. Well, in that case, I'm going to reconsider, and I'm going to go straight home instead. This letter is really starting to give me the willies. it's nice to be back home safely. There sure are some disturbed minds out there. And yeah, that was the last comic that I did, and the last comic for this talk. And I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the realizations that I did for this talk, which is I've never really thought about my work at all, or my comics, or my way of making comics. So this was really good for me, but I did some fun realizations that all my characters is kind of creepy, and I hope it's really funny that I haven't reflected on that before, but I hope that doesn't mean that I'm creepy too. I hope not. And then that I really learned to draw while I was making comics, which is kind of obvious if you compare the Hawk comic to the last comic that I did. But I thought about it, and the comics that I made, comics made me draw, and drawing made me tell stories, and it goes hand in hand, and I couldn't have done one or the other, and that I really liked the combination of image and text, and that was really what inspired me to make comics in the beginning. When I applied for this, or went to comic book school, that was what I was interested in from the beginning with comics, and yeah, that's really what I like about comics. And another thing I like about my comics is also that I really like my ideas, and that I mostly enjoy the making of the comic, like developing the characters, creating the atmosphere, and then coming up with fun interactions with the characters, and getting just the right expression on a character's face, or just how the character sits, or just the satisfaction of that drawing. And then I realized that I am really bad at promoting my work. Also, because what's fun to me in a comic, to make a comic, is that process of making it, and the idea of it, and drawing. And then when that's done, it feels like it's over, like it's like it's not that interesting for me or fulfilling afterwards to promote it. It's like, oh, this was kind of done for me, and now it's done, and now I just want to move on to the next thing, and put the comic in a drawer. And I think I have that in, when I do a comic, I'm like I make the comics for my own, or I make the comic as me, as the main reader, I guess, when I draw it, and then don't think about so much I don't do the comics for an audience in mind when I draw the comic. So that people have found my comics and enjoy them it's a huge bonus for me, that because it feels like it's probably difficult to find my comics, and I'm really grateful for this, to be invited to this talk, and even surprised that you would find my comics and invite me. And well, that's my talk.
Great, thank you. If you have any questions or comments, just put your name in the chat and then you can unmute yourself. There's a question from Austin, English.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to ask that with your voice?
Yeah, sure. That was a wonderful talk. Thank you so much for giving it. I just wanted to know, because I've seen these comics before, and seeing you read them again, it really it made me wonder about, sometimes your stories seem to care as much about small details in every panel as much as like equally care about the plot of the story. Like both things are as important, the very small details and the larger punchline. So I was wondering if there's any any art in comics or movies that you feel have a similar interest to a similar way of storytelling that you draw inspiration from, or that you or if this is something that came organically from you working.
I think it came from, liking just a lot of old stuff. I realized that with just drawing from a lot of old magazine. I was really drawn to like this interior design image, which is a lot of bunch of stuff in it, and just a lot of details and yeah. And I don't know why I'm drawn to that, but it's just like yeah, both from movies, I guess, and old magazines. And I realized also that most of my inspiration from movies that I saw when I was younger was from black and white movies, like Charlie Chaplin or yeah, like the Zika movies and Fellini. And yeah, my mom and dad really liked movies, so I think I just got a lot of inspiration from movies and just images with a lot of details in them. And I think also from my home. I mean, my mom has a lot of things at home, so I think also that inspires just being like, okay, well, an environment with a lot of things, that's just normal. Normal to me. So yeah, but yeah, I can't say a specific movie or that I just was inspired by all the details and but yeah, just in general, from magazines mostly. Yeah.
It's really interesting because so many other comics like seem to want to speed you through the story and make all the details just, kind of like you translate them quickly in your mind. And I was like looking through these again, it reminded me a lot of ways of things like being a kid and looking at a large drawing in Mad Magazine or something, and all the little jokes and the little details. And there's so much, like you really slow down, look at I think to really appreciate these, you have to slow down and look at every aspect, because it's not that things are hidden, but there's things to experience everywhere in the drawings.
I really like that from Mad Magazine, or just we have this in Sweden, this children's author that is making this story with a lot of small characters in it. And I always like that, the small details. And another thing that I just realized now with the comics that I made, that I started making like one page for a panel, thinking that, oh, well, I need a large image or a lot of room for all the details that I want to make. And then now by the end of this comic that I did lastly, I was, the panels are really, really tiny, and I still managed to fit a lot of these small details. And it's really fun how I just like went from like this big, I'm like, oh, I need a lot of space so you can see all the details, to like, no, actually I must have become better at just like, okay, drawing these small details, because it doesn't matter what size I have, like I still have to have these details. I don't know. Yeah, it's not, yeah, they have to be in there to create this room. Yeah.
Speaking of films, so what are your feelings about Ingmar Bergman? Does that talk to you as someone who grew up in Sweden?
I like some of his movies, but I also don't haven't seen all of them. I've seen a few of them, but yeah, and I like some of them, yeah. But I guess I am not a Bergman fan that I've seen all of his movies, and but yeah, I like his. Yeah, there's some movies that I really like. Mm-hmm. I think I can.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't hear.
Oh, hello?
Huh? Now I hear. Oh.
I loved your presentation, and
thank you.
I was also thinking of Bergman, actually, because I feel like it seems like he's like one of the most important. I mean, it's kind of obvious, like he's so, but then I was thinking there's a director I like a lot named Nikki Lindroth. Have you heard of her?
Yeah.
She's Swedish. She's Swedish, and she's younger, and I feel like she like figures out ways of like individuating from Bergman, but she has to do it in sneaky ways because Bergman's such a presence, right? So like for her, in her films, she does like little animals, like in musicals, like singing, you know, like in the most depressing spaces imaginable, like you know, hospital cafeterias, and like, you know, and it's so, it has something about Bergman in the flavor of it, but it's so unique that it kind of pushes against that influence, you know. But there was something about your work that reminded me of her work, like it's sort of quiet, and it also felt very dreamlike, like it almost felt like some of the ones, like about the one with the in the new apartment, it felt like it was like sort of like whispers in a dream almost, you know, like sort of, and I really liked that feeling. It felt like sort of Freudian in cool ways. I get, then that's sort of a Bergman thing too, probably. But I don't know. So yeah, but I really loved the presentation, and I love, my favorite picture was the one with the person raising the.
That one.
It's so mysterious, like that could be interpreted so many ways, you know. I thought it was really profound. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Well, that scene was really fun to make. I mean, I had this like, it's fun that he follows him to this cafe, and then he's kind of like being in this way towards being really weird toward this person. And it was really fun for me to make this. But I am really inspired by this. I like the same feeling, like this, the weirdness or the dreamlike, and I'm really inspired by that in movies or in just in general, like that a little bit off or this weird, or just like, I don't know. As a kid, I was also, and still, like I dream a lot, and I have really vivid dreams, and always liked this dreams being like different things happening, and kind of you have to interpret things yourself, and then from movies, that's what I like in movies too, when it's like this a little bit weird, a little bit and both me and Nikki went to when I went to animation school, she was in school at the same time, and we're the same age, and I was thinking about not just Bergman, but do you know of this director called Roy Andersson, a Swedish director. You should see, if you like, you should see his movies too, because that's also, I think we come from the same, like that we like and influenced by a lot of the same things. I mean, liking probably the same movies and yeah. But yeah, his movies are really good. I mean, really, also this had this weirdness and stillness in them, and just yeah. Well.
Anybody else? So what is the feeling at a Swedish comics festival? I mean, are there still national styles, or does it feel like you could be in Brooklyn? Or is there a very do these things exist anymore?
Yeah,
that would tell you you're in Sweden.
Yeah, but it was a long time I visited a comic book festival in Sweden, actually. So I feel like I can't say how it's like now. But when I was younger and was attending them, I mean, when I started, when I went to comic school there, and the first comics I read was a lot of this what's it called, self-autobiographical books, like people talking a lot about them, and I really liked that in Swedish comics. That was really, but that was like and now I'm not really. Also, there was a long time ago I was in a Brooklyn comic festival, so I've been away from comics for a while, so I'm not so up to date with how it is now. But probably similar. I mean,
been a question from Julian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was wondering, can we order copies of your comics? Are you able to print them still?
Yeah, well, Austin has a Faceman, and Ryan Stanfest has both the Penny Dreadful and the Black Eye, and mostly in anthologies. And the comics that I published myself, I just made a small, like small edition that sold out. So I have like one copy of each comic that I made. But yeah, Austin has.
Yeah, there's a link in the chat.
I see that now.
Julia, you can go to the I can just say you can go to the Domino Books website, and we still have copies of Faceman in stock, but not many left.
Yeah. So I'm curious now. A lot of your characters have, one eye that's bigger than the other, and does that just happen, or is it purposely like an expression they have? Or?
I think a little bit of both, because it's just the thing that I was talking about before with animation, just tracing over the same like image over and over again, and something from this like things getting processed that I really like this original kind of line, that it's like I don't really sketch my images before. It's just like, it's kind of direct. It's just when I draw, and that's like, it's done. So whatever happens kind of happens. So sometimes they're a little bit off, but then I'm like, okay, well then that it should be like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like in the earlier comics, I did it on purpose. Like I did, like one man is bigger than the other around the table, or like the cat is really big, and just like someone's hands are really big, and then but that was also because I was like I was drawing a pair of hands that I cut out, and I was like, oh, this is left from something that I didn't use. Okay, put these hands on this person's body, and okay, they're not matching, but that's but I kind of like that too, where it's like it becomes really personal, or the character becomes personal, or everybody's a little bit off. So
Right.
it's like if I would like sketch them and then draw them again and again and again, they would lose something that I like in this original drawing. So yeah, I guess it's like a kind of my style to just like have it like that. But it's also a lot what I get inspired by. I mean, I'm inspired by a lot of this like outsider art and kids drawings, and just like when it is kind of like this the same type of feeling.
Right.
Any other questions? What was the name of the school, this comic school you went to?
Well, it's called like a comic. It's like called Serieskolan. Okay. It's like a comic book school. I think it's called like a Kvarnby Serieskola. Okay. But I mean, that was really fun going to that school. I mean, I had a lot of fun. But I was also really young.
Is that like an undergraduate or before college?
No, it's before. It's like a folkhögskola, we say in Sweden. It's like folkhögskola. Yeah, it's like it's a year, and but that was a lot of fun.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, very, very nice though. Yeah, I like it a lot. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, real interesting. Yeah, the one panel from the doctor's office where you talk about the orchestra.
Oh yeah.
Just made me think, well, you should try constructing that instrument.
Oh yeah.
Make a model of that, yeah.
Yeah. They were really fun to draw these small details on this, like coming up with different tools. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So are your feelings about doctors in general that it's hard for a human being to deal with such a serious thing as other people's health, that they have to go off their rocks and do all these? I'm always surprised that they can actually do it. It seems like it's too much responsibility for a human being to do it.
I think I just like I got really I like the idea of like this. I mean, a doctor is really trusted, a person you trust. I mean, and then for a person to be not, I mean, it's not a person that you can trust at all. But just like with this, like, a doctor, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm 100% trusting you. And that's fun to make something that's like, well, yeah, you shouldn't. Or just like how he can just go on being himself and nobody reacting.
Yeah.
That's a fun idea. But I don't know how the doctor, why the doctor just started to appear, and
So do you have a way of comparing the medical system in Sweden to what you experienced in America, or were you not here long enough? You have to go to a doctor.
No, I actually never went to a doctor.
Oh, okay.
Actually.
But there's also like, I feel like because of the nature of the drawings, I mean, as soon as you said doctor, I was thinking like Freud. Like when people said, oftentimes people refer to Freud as like the doctor. I mean, you know, you could say that sort of, sort of in a funny sense, but I mean, like there's a funny poem by Wallace Stevens about like rationalists wearing square hats, and it's sort of poking fun at Freud. But obviously Freud was also, you know, very original and profound. And I mean, even though I'm sure he had, you know, weird ideas about women, but so I thought whenever I was hearing about this doctor character, in the back of my mind, I was always thinking like, it was always like a little bit, I always thought it was kind of a reference to Freud in different ways.
Yeah. It's just that it doesn't have a name. So it just like, it became the doctor. And also it's also because it's the same doctor showing up in every comic. So it's like, just like, oh yeah, the doctor. Let's call the doctor, or the doctor shows up. And it's the same in all of my comics.
Anyway, thank you. It was great. So it must be very late in Sweden.
Yeah, I don't know.
So thank you. If there are no other questions, we can let you go back to. Oh, nothing. Okay.
No, just saying, yeah, good. Really nice, and glad you were able to do this. Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for inviting me to do this. I really enjoyed thinking about my work and actually doing this, putting this together, and like, okay, showing my work too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, and good night. See you next week.